When you're dealing with gang members, probation officer Jim Gallipo believes in being direct.
Sometimes I'm profane and I'm rough and I use language that would shock, temperate people. I'm able to communicate. I believe I have a unique ability to communicate with these street gang members.
Deputy District Attorney Arthur Gray thinks you gotta be tough.
Yes, when they break the law. Yes, when they go out and hurt somebody, you gotta do something about it. You gotta go ahead and put them away. But let's talk about stopping them before they get to that point.
Dealing with the hardcore next on Life and Times.
Major funding for Life and Times is provided by the James Irvine Foundation, which is dedicated to the development of an informed California citizenry. With additional support from GTE, a company committed to telecommunications excellence and an open dialogue among all people.
When I came, to work in the ghetto, I never looked like a normal Caucasian. I recognized that to go in there with a Ivy League suit and a flat top haircut or something would not exactly inspire confidence in me and would not make it easier for me, to work in the neighborhoods. In almost every gang in this area here, there are people who know who I am, and they refer to me as Kojak, Mr. Gallipo, whatever. But I've been doing it. I've been dealing with the gang since the gang started, and so I over the years I've had so many gang members that now I'm beginning to be in a position where I'm getting kids on my case though that I had their parents. When they were gang members 15 years ago. I almost always have done all my work in people's homes. I don't really believe in having clients come to an office. It's too sterile and all, it's easier for them to lie and stuff. But when you're sitting in their living room, looking around their house and you can smell the dope or you can smell gunpowder and all this type of thing, it's a little more conducive to them being as truthful as possible. Now, I have a client named Richard. He's already been in county jail once. He's done all the juvenile camp time he's going to do. His future is either going to be to go ahead and cash in on his GED that he's probably prepared for through the Impact program, or he's going to stay with the gang, which would ultimately end Richard up in state prison. All right, now, Richard, do you understand how bad you up by messing up that Impact program?
Now, yeah, I do.
Okay, what did you do wrong?
I just let my attitude, I didn't control my attitude.
Thank you. But what exactly was it that you let your attitude get out of hand?
Talking back to the staff up there and stuff.
Okay, now, do you know in your mind now why you did that?
That's just me.
All right, but how long did you do in camp?
6 months.
All right, 24 weeks lockdown, where you have to raise your hand to pee. Sir, can I make a head call? Where you have to be put on quiet, where you can't talk for hours at a time. We've been through all that. Now, that didn't teach you when to shut your mouth and when to open your mouth?
Yeah, it did. But,
Now, it's time for you to grow up. You're damn near 19 years old, and I am sick of fooling with you. I've cut you some slack because you didn't get convicted of anything, in that adult case. But I got to go back to court on you in our case, and I will have to report to the court that you were busted and that you did a couple of days in county jail before they released you. Richard's definitely a 50-50. He's riding right on the line right now between making it and being productive and, and being locked up.
Is he running out of patience with you?
Probably so. I know I've been in a lot of trouble and stuff, but I be trying not to get in trouble, trying to stay out the streets and stuff, because too many people getting killed. Too many.
Do you think this time's going to be different?
Yeah, it's going to be different, because I'm going to straighten up my act and get my life situated, because my mother, she used to worry. She still do worry about me when I leave the house, if I'm going to come back or not, but I'm going to change all of that. So,
why do you think you're going to change this time opposed to the others?
Because I've seen too many of my friends get killed. Too many.
Michael, this is Mr. Galipo. Now, where you been, man? They ain't gonna let you go to regular school because all you do is act the fool. The LA schools won't let you back since you had a gun on the bus. And you better call that school back and start talking about what you can do. Because if you ain't in school by the time you get to court, you can bend over and kiss your behind goodbye. You understand what I'm saying? Goodbye. Things have changed radically and dramatically in the last 5 to 7 years. And during that time, my job went from being stimulating, exciting, and challenging to being very depressing. 10, 15 years ago, you might not have a youngster killed in a whole year. Now, I've gone periods where I had one killed every week for 6 and 7 weeks in a row. And that's depressing, to work with youngsters and get to know them and get to know their families and end up going to funerals.
Your Honor, apparently it was a different address and...
He didn't receive notice of the hearing?
That's correct.
I like to believe that they feel that, I will lock them up, but that I'm fair. That in essence what I do is give them an opportunity to fulfill their conditions of probation. I don't order the conditions of probation. All I do is enforce them.
All right, you can be excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I think probably what I look for most of all from a probation officer who's out there dealing with the kids is a realistic report and recommendation. And if I get that from the probation officer, and Galipo usually gives me that, then I go with him. He's a street guy. That's the best label I can put on him. He understands kids. He's with the kids. He's got a street smart. He's got the experience. He has the tools to communicate. He doesn't play games. He lays his cards on the table. The young people that he has to deal with understand where he's coming from. And I think basically what you could say is he's real.
I started being a probation officer when I was 23 years old. And I just got out of the Army to Vietnam. And to me, I was really attracted to South Central Los Angeles, the ghetto areas since the Watts riots, working in juvenile hall. I found a vitality among black and brown people in the South Central Los Angeles neighborhood that I hadn't seen. I feel far more comfortable in a ghetto situation than I would at a White House ball or something like that. I mean, I would be one of the most uncomfortable people at a inaugural or something like that. That would be terrible for me. Whereas, at a Kwanzaa celebration or at a Martin Luther King Day barbecue or something like that, hey, I'm down with the homies, In the ghetto gangs, trust is everything. Everything is called respect. If you diss somebody or disrespect them, it is either battle or death. And you have to give respect to get respect. I have always demanded respect, and I have always given respect. Although sometimes I'm profane and I'm rough and I use language that would shock, temperate people, I'm able to communicate. I believe I have a unique ability to communicate with these street gang members.
He would come to me and we'd be talking and he'd tell me, he'd say, nigga, you know you can do better. And for that statement coming out of white guy's mouth to me, I would like, you know, what this white boy doing calling me a nigga? But Mr. Gallipo would call you a nigga, and it was like, he wasn't calling you a nigga as low rating you. He was calling you a nigga saying, well, nigga, you can do better. That's letting you know that he's no better than I am. He's just as much as a man as I am. He know I'm just as much as a man as he is, but he would call me a nigga. That would like kind of get my attention.
Hi. How you doing? I'm fine, New York.
When you work in the streets and you're out in these people's homes and they all know each other, and every home call within a gang area, you're talking about the same people, the other people that know them, and you know, it's like you're part of the community. And it's seductive. You get into, you know, becoming too close. You get into, you know, becoming over empathetic and identifying maybe too much. All right, now you remember why I said I don't ever want you ever out on these streets after 10 at night? Why?
Yeah. One of the reasons because the police be out at night.
That's correct.
Looking for that 77 crash. And then the other thing is because people get rowdy at night. That's when all the gangs want to jump off.
That's the whole trip. And that line of demarcation is always there. Hey, I might be Gallipo, but I'm still the man. See, I am still your probation officer, and we're not going to sit down and smoke weed, and we're not going to sit down and have you pull out a gun in front of me to show me your new 9mm when you're not supposed to have guns. And I very seldom does anybody cross that kind of a line with me. I expect you guys to leave your gang affiliation at the gate out here. When you come in here, I don't care who it is, whether it's a Crip or a Blood or a Clantone or a Valle Nuevo. What I'm doing that's different is I'm really trying to enfranchise some of the hardcore gang members that are referred to as OGs or original gangsters. These are the guys that have called the shots, may still call the shots, but in any respect are still listened to.
You better try to deal with this program and come here and do your work and see Mr. Gallipo when you're supposed to see him, man, and everything be all right. You be here, you won't miss your kid growing up. You see what I'm saying?
And you tell them what your homies did for you when you were in the joint smoking.
Didn't send me nothing. You know, I had to depend on my mother and my father, you understand me? But when you get out of jail, I guarantee you, they can be your homies again. They're gonna tell you how much they missed you and everything. But when you kick back and think about it, they missed me so much, how come they didn't send me nothing? Why didn't go by there and check on my little son? See what I'm saying?
I believe that we can solve this gang problem. I mean, it would probably end up taking massive amounts of money like the space program did from government, but we could do it. And then basically the keys are, you know, dealing with the hardcore gang members by educating, you know, first getting them literate, getting them GEDs, getting them, you know, real jobs, and with the younger gang members, early intervention.
So this part would be the subject, and the action or what happened would be the predicate. And that's what you do.
I see hope here. I see dignity here. I see a lot of potential. And I'm going to spend the last few years of my career trying to get the hardcore gangsters a foothold in society.
A good friend of mine that I had when I was in junior high school, we used to run together when I was in the 7th grade. He used to help me in sports and things like that. I would help him with his studies. He got involved with some Crips. And he got shot and killed. And yeah, his name was Sergeant Carter, we used to call him. But you know, one day he and I were just walking down the street, or walking in on the playground, and this guy said, "Hey man, come over here, let's go talk." And Carter went and talked with him, and I said no when I went into the boys' gym. And it was the last time that me and Carter hung together. And I remember hearing several months later, coming into school one day, the day before, he was out hanging with these guys, and one of them had a gun, and the gun went off. And that was it. He was shot and killed. That was the first gang-related death that I had heard of. Close friend. Yeah. I do have doubts sometimes about the job that I'm doing, only from the standpoint of the fact that there's a life that is that's totally lost when they go to prison. They are locked up, their life is over. That is it. Once these people go to prison for 25, 26 to life, it's over. And when I think of it from that side of it, I feel really bad. I think to myself, I've just sent a young man, a young black man, away to prison for the rest of his life. He will never be able to go out and work or even try to be a productive member of the society. But by the same token, I step back and I look at the fact that he shot and killed, execution style, a young man just sitting out on the street. He shot and wounded 3 other people. He stole one man's car. He was a party to 3 other attempted murders. As to whether criminal prosecution is the answer, I'm not sure. I think there needs to be something done before they get to my stage. By the time they get to being prosecuted by the hardcore gang division, they're usually hardcore criminals. That's why we call it hardcore. And they're ready to go to prison. We need to do something to stop their escalation in crimes, their disregard for life, before they get to this point in time. Now, sir, would you examine People's 11 for me, please? And from looking at that photograph, can you determine the range of fire from muzzle to the victim? As far as being a prosecutor, I measure success in successfully prosecuting my cases, vindicating the rights of those who've been victimized. But I also measure success in terms of things that I do outside of work to keep young people from getting to this point in time. I don't have the attitude that once somebody's gone, that's another notch in my belt. I don't look at it like that. I do a job that needs to be done. Now, doctor, showing you People's, specifically number 10. Would you examine that photograph for us, please?
Yes.
Now, did you determine being black and prosecuting people from the black community can be difficult. There have been many times when I've sat at counsel table and looked across at the defendant and said, but for the grace of God, there go I. That could have easily been me. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, and I could have easily gone that way. I was involved in a gang when I was fairly young. Back when I was in elementary school, there was a gang, a Chicago-based gang called the Blackstone Rangers. And they were very well established. They had a tremendous organization of a hierarchy and so forth. They had the adult, the high school, junior high, and they had an elementary school level. But it wasn't anything near the level of gang involvement that you have these days. I could very easily have seen myself growing up and staying along those same lines, because that was right towards the end of elementary school. And I could have very easily seen myself, after leaving that, going into more serious things such as the Crips. But my mother would always stay on my behind, still even to this day. But she would make sure that I wouldn't get into certain things. I mean, it was impressed upon me that I did not have a choice, and that the only thing I could do was to achieve something. Some people who are in the community feel there's no way out, and that they don't have a choice, and the only option in front of them, is facing them, is a life in the streets, a life of crime, a life of those sorts of things. It was impressed upon me, but I only had one choice also, and that choice was to make it. But I always wanted to be a lawyer. One of the things my mother always encouraged me to do was to go into law. She felt that there was something within me that would cause me to do well as an attorney. That's one of the reasons why I chose law. I always found it fascinating. I always thought it was so interesting. I would always watch the television shows, the Petrocelli, the Judd for the Defense, the Bold Ones, Perry Mason, you name it. I used to watch them all. Interestingly enough, I used to always picture myself having some nice plush carpeted Wilshire office with a beautiful picture window looking at all the night lights and a nice skinny secretary, walking in the door, something like that, And here I am, in the halls of fame, Compton Courthouse. It didn't quite turn out that way.
So we'll go down here.
Yeah. Well, when I prepare a case, I take the philosophy of what do I need to do to prove this case to the jury? What will it take for the jury to see the truth? What witnesses do I need? What evidence do I need?
Let's take it further down.
What manner of presentation do I need to bring forth for the jury to see past all the other facade that may be there and to see the truth? It's a highly stressful job because we're under time pressures. We're under pressures to get the job done. We're under time pressures because if you don't do certain things timely, case can get dismissed. Your whole case is gone. I'm going to set you at the scene, give you the date and the time it happened, and I just want you to just kind of tell me in your own words what you remember happening, okay? It's very difficult to find witnesses, to interview and to talk to them, because so often they don't want to come in and testify, because they're so afraid of what can happen to them. You took your chain. What happened after that?
The one was holding me asked me do I have any money. I said
tell
no. They took off down 98.
Okay. What'd you do after that?
I went home.
Okay. I had a case a couple weeks ago where I had a witness that I had to have to make my case, and we could not find her. Just could not find her. The morning that I had to have her, our investigator walks in the door and says, "Oh, Art, here's your witness." When I go into the courtroom, and hopefully I don't offend any judges by saying this, but I feel that as far as the trial is concerned, I'm the one running the show there, especially as far as my case is concerned.
Raise your right hand now.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending?
I think that he is very aware of the merits of his particular case. He's candid with the court about it, and he does not try to sell you a position that he really cannot prove. That is not to say that he sells out his client, the people. He does not do that in any sense at all. But he's realistic in evaluating the evidence. He does not try to mislead you when he does not have the evidence, and that makes him a person that the court feels you can rely on.
I do know a number of DAs who have the attitude, build more prisons. I've sat in meetings where DAs who have now become defense attorneys, interestingly enough, said, we ought to just build more prisons and lock them all up. That's the way you solve the problem. And I sit and I think to myself, is that the solution? My philosophy differs significantly. Yes, when they break the law, yes, when they go out and hurt somebody, you got to do something about it. You got to go ahead and put them away. But let's talk about stopping them before they get to that point. Let's not just say build more prisons. Let's say build more schools. Let's say build more after-school programs. Let's say do something that will help these people, these kids, do something productive in life. There's so much more that each one of you can offer. If it's no more than going to somebody else at your school, out on the streets and saying, hey, you don't need to be out there gangbanging, okay? It's not all about that. Because if you do, you're either going to end up dead or you're going to end up in jail for the rest of your life. And if you think as far as my avocation is concerned, I think I am involved as a minister, as a psychologist, as a social worker, because it makes me feel better when I can do something to keep one of these at-risk kids from being another one of the people on the wall of shame, if you will. My philosophy differs from some people, granted, and I don't apologize for it. But I see where some of these people come from. We can't say to ourselves, well, I didn't have a lot to do when I was growing up, or it's no different, or why can't they just do the same thing that I did when I was growing up? Because it's not the same. They're not the same pressures. They're not the same factors today that our kids are dealing with that we dealt with 10, 15 years, 25, 30 years ago. We've got to be able to combat the problem in 1992 terms, because it's a 1992 problem and we can't use a 1975, a 1965, or 55 solution to combat a 1992 problem.